Hello there, you're tuned into 7Edition. I'm Nakia Basharuddin and these are your headlines. Malaysia reaches another grim milestone today with over 800 new infections. And New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern wins a second term in landslide election victory. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Malaysia recorded yet another record high of 869 new COVID-19 infections, the highest since the pandemic hit the country early this year. 4 deaths were also recorded today, while 5 new clusters were detected. Sabah continues to record the bulk of the new cases, with 451 patients, or 51.9% of the new infections. In Pulau Pinang, 189 new cases were detected, mostly from the Remand prison cluster and the Seberang Perai prison cluster. Meanwhile, 159 new cases were recorded in Selangor. And in Kedah, out of the 38 new cases reported, 37 of them involve the Tembok cluster. 15 cases were reported in Kuala Lumpur, 4 each in Sarawak and Perak, 3 in Terengganu, 2 each in Johor and Putrajaya, and 1 case in Negeri Sembilan. In the meantime, the deaths involve 2 local men, aged 78 and 88, reported at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Kota Kinabalu, Sabah. Another local man, aged 53, died at the Duchess of Kent Hospital, and a 71-year-old local woman at the Tawau Hospital. Most patients recorded a history of chronic diseases such as high blood pressure and diabetes. 5 new clusters have also been reported, with 3 in the Klang Valley and 1 each in Sabah and Terengganu. The Keladi cluster involves the Klang district in the state of Selangor, where the index case was identified as a result of close contact screening on October 13th. The Menara cluster involves the districts of Gombak, Petaling, Klang, Sepang and Hulu Langat in the state of Selangor, Lembah Pantai, Titiwangsa and Cheras districts in Kuala Lumpur, Larut, Matang and Selamat districts in Perak, as well as Putrajaya.
Secara keseluruhannya, sebanyak 224 kes, iaitu 25.8% pada hari ini adalah daripada kluster penjara Tembok, kluster penjara Reman dan kluster penjara Seberang Perai. Kes-kes ini sememangnya terasing di dalam penjara dan tidak menjangkiti masyarakat, iaitu 25.8%. Daripada 869 kes penularan di dalam negara, 745 kes adalah warga negara Malaysia dan 124 kes adalah bukan warga negara.
A total of 302 patients recovered, making the total recoveries at 12,561, or at a rate of 64%. In another development, Dato' Sri Ismail Sabri said business operators who need to ferry more than 1 employee in a vehicle to their premises must obtain a permission letter from the police.
Ialah mengenai kes di mana kereta 4 orang termasuk pemandu dari keluarga yang sama ingin keluar berniaga kira-kira 30 meter dari kediaman telah dikompaun oleh pihak polis. Kita telah pun mendapatkan nasihat daripada pihak polis di Raja Malaysia. Pihak polis di Raja Malaysia menasihatkan mana-mana individu yang terlibat di dalam perniagaan seperti ini yang keperluannya melebihi daripada 2 orang di dalam kenderaan, mereka perlu melaporkan kepada pihak polis untuk mendapatkan surat kebenaran perjalanan supaya tidak timbul perkara yang saya sebutkan tadi, iaitu akhirnya dikompaun oleh pihak polis.
Yesterday, a local community news page reported that a hawker selling chicken rice was issued 3 compounds at 1,000 ringgit each for traveling with 3 of his family members in the same vehicle. The 4 individuals were believed to be traveling home to Jenjarum from Subang Jaya, where they operate their business. The government has also decided to allow gymnasiums located within areas under the CMCO to operate, provided they abide by the Health Ministry's health protocols. Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri said this was agreed at a special ministerial meeting with the Youth and Sports Ministry today.
Memandangkan aktiviti gimnasium dilaksanakan secara individu dengan penjarakan fizikal sewaktu melakukan aktiviti gym tersebut. Dia bukan berapai-rapai. Dia ada jarak kerana tempat exercise itu dilakukan secara bersendirian. Jadi setelah melihat perkara tersebut, maka sidang khas hari ini bersetuju untuk membenarkan gimnasium beroperasi.
He also said football fields and futsal centres will also be allowed to reopen, but will be limited to training purposes with up to only 10 participants at any one time. The new measures will come into effect on Monday, and the detailed SOPs will be announced by the Youth and Sports Ministry soon. Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin has been cleared of COVID-19 after completing his 14-day self-quarantine and testing negative for the virus twice. In a statement today, the Prime Minister's office said Tan Sri Muhyiddin's second swab test returned negative on October 15th. However, as a precautionary measure, the Prime Minister decided to chair the National Security Council meeting this morning via video conferencing. This is the second time the Prime Minister has had to undergo self-quarantine after coming into contact with an individual who tested positive for the virus in May, and then early this month when he came into contact with a minister who tested positive. Medical assets and personnel were flown to a new Malaysian Armed Forces MAF field hospital in Tawau, Sabah this morning. The deployment was part of the joint effort between the MAF and the Health Ministry to provide medical reinforcements to health workers in the state to cope with the surge of COVID-19 cases in Sabah. The mission, involving 12 officers and 61 medical support personnel, will be stationed for at least 3 months at the MAF field hospital set up at the Tawau Sports Complex. Among the assets mobilized include an anesthetic machine, Mark IV field hospital beds, ventilators and electrocardiography machines. The makeshift hospital, located about 12 minutes away from the Tawau Hospital, has a capacity of 100 beds, including 4 in the intensive care unit to treat non-COVID-19 cases. The new hospital in particular will provide general medicine, general surgery, obstetrics and gynecology, as well as orthopedic and pediatric services.
Akan membantu Hospital Tawau dalam meringankan beban penyakit-penyakit, trauma, penyakit pembedahan dan juga penyakit-penyakit perubatan lain. Jadi ini akan bagi ruang kepada Hospital Tawau untuk menangani pesakit-pesakit COVID.
The flight crew also wore personal protective equipment, PPE, as a precautionary measure before entering the COVID-19 red zone area. The Royal Malaysian Air Force Airbus A400 aircraft, ferrying the assets and personnel for the field hospital, took off from the Subang Air Base in Shah Alam, Selangor around 8 a.m. and arrived in Tawau at about noon. The field hospital is scheduled to begin operations on Tuesday. A total of 80 personnel of Kuala Lumpur City Hall, DBKL, and the Kuala Lumpur Fire and Rescue Department today carried out public sanitization works around the federal capital today to contain the spread of COVID-19. City Mayor Datuk Mahadi Chengah said the focus areas were around Dataran Merdeka, Jalan Tuanku Abdul Rahman, Jalan Ampang, Jalan Bukit Nenas, Jalan Petaling and Central Market.
Jadi kawasan 500 radius 500 meter ini juga merupakan termasuk kawasan-kawasan yang menjadi spots gelandangan dan juga tempat kita jangka tumpuan awam, tempat awam. Jadi ini menjadi tempat yang kita jangka bila adanya perkumpulan dan juga big volume of people ni, maka inilah menjadi tupuan utama kita untuk memastikan kawasan-kawasan ini bersih dan of course kalau boleh bebas daripada kuman yang menjadi wabak kepada COVID-19.
He added that such operations would be implemented from time to time and were also part of the new norms that requires cooperation from all quarters. The public were also urged to cooperate by adhering to the standard operating procedures set by the government to help curb the spread of the coronavirus. Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim, who was summoned to the Federal Police Headquarters in Bukit Aman yesterday, was questioned on 5 other cases, apart from the list of 121 members of Parliament purportedly backing him to be Prime Minister, as reported by the MH Daily portal. Bukit Aman CID Director Datuk Huzair Muhammad, who revealed this, also assured the investigations are being conducted professionally and denied claims of any political pressure. In a statement today, Datuk Huzair said the other cases being probed by authorities include Datuk Sri Anwar's statement that Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin's government had collapsed after losing the majority in the Dewan Rakyat, a sodomy case, and a statutory declaration by Aidil Azim Abu Adam, and a video of the Port Dickson MP's speech alleging gambling outlets were operating during the movement control order. Also under police investigations are another video of his speech alleging 6.7 million foreigners were in Malaysia, and a press conference held by the PKR president after presenting documents to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. Datuk Huzair also said the list of MP names, which has since gone viral, has triggered unhealthy speculation and was intended to spark unrest as well as disrupt public harmony. Yesterday, Datuk Sri Anwar was accompanied by his lawyer and Bukit Gelugor MP, Ramkarpal Singh, as well as his political secretary, Farhash Wafa Salvador Rizal Mubarak, to record his statement at Bukit Aman. As of this morning, 113 police reports had been received, including from some MPs who denied giving support to the opposition leader. The case is being investigated under the Penal Code and Communications and Multimedia Act. Over 80,000 Mule accounts used by online fraud syndicates have been detected by the police between last year and October 9th of this year. These online syndicates fooled victims into loaning their ATM cards and PIN numbers in exchange for payments of between 200 and 2,000 ringgit. Bukit Aman Commercial Crime Investigation Department CCID Director Datuk Zainuddin Yaakob said the modus operandi of the syndicates was to deceive victims to loan their ATM cards and PIN numbers by offering them money in exchange. A bank account that is allowed or given by its owner to be used by a third party without the person being aware of the real motive of the usage is a mule account and an offence that can be charged in court. Datuk Zainuddin added the syndicates normally use social media for this purpose by targeting individuals who are in need of fast cash, like drug addicts, housewives, and students. He further explained that in certain cases, there were also individuals who borrowed money from loan sharks and were told to give their ATM cards and PIN numbers as one of the conditions for repayment. He disclosed that last year, a total of 18,130 Mule accounts had been frozen, while this year, until October 9th, 16,429 Mule accounts were put under similar action. Datuk Zainuddin added a total of 6,409 account holders were also charged last year, while 3,176 were charged this year so far for committing offences under the Penal Code and the Minor Offences Act for dishonestly receiving or possessing stolen or illegal property. While most account holders were not aware that their accounts were being used for illegal purposes, there were also among them who purposely gave their account number for online cheating. The punishment for the offence includes 5 years in jail or a fine or both if convicted. A father and his son were killed when the car their family was traveling in crashed into a roadside highway sign along the North-South Expressway near the Air Hitam Toll Plaza in Johor today. 3 other members of the family were also badly injured in the noon incident. It was believed that their Honda Civic car went out of control and skidded to the left side of the road before ramming head-on into one of the signage's metal support posts. 50-year-old Abdul Razak Muhammad Mahudin and his 19-year-old son Muhammad Amiruddin died on the spot. Firemen deployed to the scene had to use special equipment to extricate the victims from the wreckage. The 2 bodies were then handed over to the police for further action. Meanwhile, Abdul Razak's 27-year-old son, Muhammad Hamizan, who was also the car driver, as well as his 21-year-old daughter, Nurul Nahira, and a woman believed to be his wife, 49-year-old Rahima Yaman, were taken to the Sultanah Nora Ismail Hospital for treatment. The cause of the accident is being investigated under the Road Transport Act. 4 men were detained after allegedly obstructing civil servants in the line of duty at the Slim River Toll Plaza, Tanjung Malim, early this morning. Mualim Police Chief Superintendent Sulizmi Afendi Sulaiman said a police MPV patrol team went to the scene after receiving information about a group of drunks playing music loudly from their car stereo in the 3:30 a.m. incident. Upon arriving at the scene, the police officers instructed the 4 men aged between 25 and 41 who were outside their car to disperse. However, 2 of the men turned rowdy and started provoking one of the policemen by pushing him and shouting profanities. One of the men had also recorded a video during the incident and challenged the officers to detain them. Authorities also said, based on checks, one of the 4 men has a criminal record for a gambling-related offence and rioting. They have remanded until Sunday to facilitate investigations under Section 186 of the Penal Code. They could face a maximum 2-year jail term or a fine of up to 10,000 ringgit or both if found guilty. Coming up, embracing the new norms. How are businesses adapting? Find out more after the break. Welcome back to 7Edition. Now imagine you are the owner of a booming business and in the middle of expanding it even further. But the COVID-19 pandemic happens, forcing the government to shut down all economic sectors. This causes not only your sales to plummet to almost zero, but you are also forced to lay off your workers to keep your business afloat. 8 months on since the movement control order, many businesses, especially small and medium enterprises, are still struggling to adjust to this new reality. Fortunately, some managed to adapt quickly early on, putting their business on a recovery path by simply refocusing their efforts, as well as embracing the new norms. According to Bari Nasim, founder and managing director of Coffee Collective Sendirian Berhad, the pandemic and subsequent MCO enforced in March had a major impact on his business as it hit the pause button on the country's growing cafe industry at that time. Not only did it throw a wrench into his plans to expand his coffee roastery, sales also dropped and he was forced to cut overhead costs and even lay off some workers.
A huge portion of our revenue is from our wholesale customers, meaning restaurants, hotels, cafes. So when the lockdown happened, they had to shut down their business too. And we had no income or any revenue coming in.
To further sustain his company, which roasts and supplies specialty-grade coffee beans, as well as provide consultancy, equipment and barista training for new cafes, Bari had to think out of the box, and luckily he saw a silver lining from the MCO due to a growing interest on home brewing among coffee lovers stuck at home during the lockdown. So he decided to take a chance in retail instead to stay in business by refocusing the company's marketing efforts online and using social media.
When MCO happened, we were quite surprised. After the first week, our online retail sales grew drastically. And we realized that's a segment that we cannot ignore anymore. It opened up our eyes.
Despite the government having reopened the economic sectors, Bari is not taking any risks and has ensured that all daily operations at his company strictly follow the government's guidelines.
We have the My Sejahtera app. We have crowd control, not more than 10 in our roastery. We also do schedule rotation for our staff, just to limit the capacity in our roastery. We sanitize regularly. Our staff wear masks every time they're in the premises. And we even do contact tracing internally with our staff. So we are always updated on their whereabouts. We update our social regularly on if there's any cases around us. We get that source of information from My Sejahtera. We also regularly update them on our crowd control in our own premises. And the minute they step in, they have to follow the SOPs that are in place.
The 37-year-old Kuala Lumpur native added that the situation for his company is now better in recent weeks. However, he believes that his company or even other businesses will not survive if another MCO is enforced.
We cannot afford another lockdown. We've seen that dozens, maybe thousands of businesses have been affected and to shut down, and people had to look for other jobs or other source of income. So I don't think anyone is hoping for another lockdown. So I hope everyone follows the SOP, strictly follow the SOP, and do not go out unless it's completely necessary.
We all can help break the chain of infection simply by embracing the new norms. This includes practicing the 3 W's, washing your hands frequently with soap and water or using a hand sanitizer, always wearing a face mask if you need to go to crowded public places, and to heed warnings from the Health Ministry. Also avoid the 3 C's like crowded places, confined spaces and close conversations by making sure to always maintain physical distancing of at least 1 meter from one another. And now switching over to the foreign front, Jacinda Ardern has won a second term as New Zealand's Prime Minister after her success at handling the country's coronavirus outbreak helped secure a landslide victory. With 90% of the vote counted, Ardern's centre-left Labour Party was on 49%, which would give it 64 seats in the 120-member parliament. Opposition leader Judith Collins' centre-right National Party was on 26%, or 34 seats, its worst result in nearly 20 years. Ardern has dubbed the vote the COVID election, campaigning on her success on handling the COVID-19 pandemic, the major focus of the election. A record number of voters, more than 1.7 million, cast their ballots in advance, accounting for almost half of roughly 3.5 million New Zealanders on the electoral rolls. Results are still being counted and final results will be released in 3 weeks, once special votes, including those cast by New Zealanders living overseas, are counted. And now onto some Brexit updates. European and British negotiators will be in touch over the phone on Monday to discuss the structure of post-Brexit trade talks, despite Downing Street announcing on Friday that talks between the two sides are over. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson wants Brussels to adopt a fundamental change of approach, threatening a no-Brexit deal if otherwise. But the other side wants the UK to make the necessary moves to make an agreement possible. Johnson said there was no point in holding any more talks without a dramatic softening of the EU's position. Shortly after, Downing Street had told Michel Barnier, EU trade negotiator, not to come to London for further talks next week. This unless he was ready to make a new offer that respected the UK as an independent country. According to Johnson, the outcome from the EU summit held last Thursday, leaders agreed to extend Brexit talks, defying a Thursday deadline set by London.
It's clear from the summit that after 45 years of membership, they are not willing, unless there's some fundamental change of approach, to offer this country the same terms as Canada. I've concluded that we should get ready for January the 1st with arrangements that are more like Australia's, based on simple principles of global free trade.
The Prime Minister's threat was seen by some as a theatrical gesture, a necessary moment of crisis, before both sides finally made concessions to reach a deal. At the same time, a no-Brexit trade deal could cost the reeling UK economy $36.4 billion next year.
When we return, Borna Coric, Milos Raonic to meet in semi-final showdown. We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us. An 18-year-old teenager from Chechnya, Russia, was shot dead by police in a suburb of Paris after he decapitated a school teacher on Friday afternoon. It was reported that the French teacher had recently shown students cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad and had received threats after opening a discussion on the matter. The suspect, armed with a knife and an airsoft gun, was shot to death by police about 600 meters from where the male middle school teacher was killed. An anti-terror probe has been launched since, and 9 people, including the parents of a child at the school, were arrested. According to the source, the 2 detained parents had signaled their disagreement with the teacher's decision to show the cartoons, while 2 others arrested are members of the suspect's social circle. French President Emmanuel Macron had dubbed the incident a terrorist attack, and anti-terror prosecutors are treating the assault as a murder linked to a terrorist organization. Thailand has recorded its first 2 locally transmitted cases of the coronavirus today in more than a month. The last known local case was in early September. The new cases were among 2 Myanmar nationals living near the border with Myanmar, where infections have been surging recently. They showed no symptoms, but results were positive when they were tested about 5 days ago. The new infections came amid anti-government and pro-democracy protests across capital Bangkok that have recently grown since the start of the year. Learning the ropes, young girls in Tasmania, Australia are part of a new wave of girls being encouraged to take up sailing, a sport traditionally dominated by males. The Girls on the Water program is a new local initiative aimed at building confidence on the water and developing skilled sailors. These budding boaties making their waves wrap up 7Edition tonight. With that, I'm Nakia Basharuddin. Thanks for tuning in. Stay safe as always, and good night.